Frederick for one show only, July 10th, when the Blues Brothers Act brings music and mayhem to the crowds. The Blues Brothers have entertained nationally and for crowds at Chicago Bulls games, so don't miss their only area appearance, July 10th at Grove Stadium. For Keys, tickets, and information, call 662-0088. Don't miss it.
For the best and fine jewelry, come to Billy's in downtown Frederick and examine over 5 million.
Make sure your message gets across. Advertise on cable and reach the people you need to reach with the sight, sound, color, and motion of television. Call Frederick Cablevision Advertising today.
Now some excitement generated from that left field area. That's the Keys promotion this evening. A local furniture store is going to give away a recliner to one of 3 fans who can cheer the loudest and get the crowd into the game. Not much to cheer about so far for the Keys as they trail 4-0 as we head to the top of the 7th.
Yeah, it's been tough to get the crowd involved here. I mean, the crowd is waiting for something to cheer about. I mean, anything. And unfortunately, the Keys have not been able to provide them with that. I mean, it's a great crowd here tonight. It'd be nothing, it'd be great to see the crowd get involved. I think they can help this Keys ball club a little bit, but the Keys got to start it first. They got to generate a little excitement.
Ron Kitchen is on the mound for Frederick. He's in relief of Matt Marenghi. Paul Gonzalez, the batter, takes a ball 1 from Ron Kitchen. Kitchen came on last inning. Got the last 2 hitters. Strike called on the outside part of the plate. 1 ball and 1 strike from Ron Kitchen to Paul Gonzalez. Gonzalez 0 for 2 in the game. He's grounded to short, flied out to center. Grounded to the left side. David Lamb takes the 2-hopper and throws to first. Jeff Michael gets the put out. There's 1 out in the top of the 7th. So Ron Kitchen has retired all 3 batters he's faced. Sure-handed David Lamb made the play. That'll bring up Andre Newhouse, the number 9 hitter. He has flied out to right and then singled in the 5th inning. Also had a stolen base.
That was Jeff Huber you just saw throwing in the Keys bullpen, the left-hander. Kind of loosening up kind of easy right about now. No pitch, no pitch. Time is called. Now, a lot of people scream and holler, well, he was in his windup, he was in his windup. But what you don't realize is the umpire, we'll get to that in a minute. Oh!
Line drive up the middle and a base hit. Ron Kitchen had to duck out of the way of that shot off the bat of Andre Newhouse as he has his 2nd base hit of the game.
Well, this is a frozen rope right through the box, and it almost decapitates Ron Kitchen. Oh, boy. That ball was drilled. That ball was smoked.
Big guy got out of the way in a hurry.
Thank goodness.
Kitchen 6-1. Had to go all the way down for that one. Sandy McKinnon, the leadoff batter, 1 for 3 in the game. Go back to first. McKinnon struck out in the 1st and 5th. Had a single in the 3rd inning. So you look at the runner, Andre Newhouse. He has 1 stolen base in this game. Another line shot. Center fielder Avila coming on. He makes the catch. And Newhouse will have to go back to first base.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the Cannons are in the dugout lined up at the number. They're taking a number. They can't wait to get up there and hit. They are just crushing Keys pitching here tonight. I mean, even the outs are well hit, Jeff. I mean, they're almost grabbing a bat and running up to the batter's box. They're so anxious to hit.
Jason Goligoski is at the plate. He's 1 for 3. Doubled and scored in the 1st. Hits it to the opposite side and a base hit through the hole. So Goligoski has his 2nd base hit of the game. Advancing to 2nd base is Andre Newhouse.
Here it is, the fastball up and away a little bit, and Goligoski, a nice piece of hitting, driving the ball through the hole on the left side. And with 2 outs, Cannons have a pair of runners on.
It's Andre Newhouse at 2nd.
Thank you.
Jason Goligoski is at first base. 2 outs in the top of the 7th inning. The number 3 hitter in the lineup, Frank Menachino, is to the plate, and he's 2 for 3. takes a strike.
Yeah, all 5'9", 185-pounders right there, Frank Menachino, and a lot of people knocked him because he wasn't big enough. And we mentioned his 43rd round draft selection. I think he's a man on a mission. He's got a few things to prove, and he's done that. Batting third for the Cannons, having a good year.
Fouled off. No balls and 2 strikes to Menachino, who stands 5 feet 9 inches. He singled in the first to knock in Goligoski. Grounded out into a double play in the third, and then doubled and scored in the 6th.
Menachino was a catcher in high school, and he's sort of got a catcher's build. It's just overall, it's a little bit on the small side. I mean, he's short and stocky, 185 pounds, but he's only 5'9". Feels he can play any of the 3 infield positions. Has played mostly second base for the Cannons. Good little hitter. Good little player.
Seems like the kind of player who would do anything and everything the manager tells him to.
You bet.
Team ball player is Frank Menachino. 2 balls and 2 strikes is the count with 2 outs in the top of the 7th inning. Ron Kitchen on the mound for Frederick. Menachino at the plate. Gets away from Jim Foster. Advancing are the runners. Newhouse to third. And Goligoski to second on the wild pitch by Ron Kitchen. So 2 runners in scoring position now, with the heart of the order at the plate as you see Goligoski at second base.
Well, Jeff, the game's on the line right here. The Keys cannot allow any more runs. 4 runs, I mean, you can live with that because you still got, 3 more at bats. But if they give up a couple runs here, I think you can see some towels being thrown in. So Ron's got to really go after this guy and get him out without no more runs, or Keys are in big trouble.
The 1-2 pitch coming. Just missed at Kitchen. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
This is probably Kitchen's last batter. The left-hand hitting Harold Williams is on deck, and Huber is ready in the bullpen. He is a left-handed thrower, so I think if Menachino should reach here, that we will see a pitching change.
First base is open. The count is now full. 3, 4, 5, and 6 hitters have knocked in the runs tonight for the Prince William Cannons. Those are the guys who were supposed to get the RBIs. Ball 4, the sacks are full.
And let's see if we see a change bringing in the left-hander to pitch to the left-hand hitting Williams.
Harold Williams, who has a home run in the game, will come to the plate with the bases loaded. Mike O'Barry heads to the mound. Jeff Huber is ready in the bullpen, and he will come into the game. It'll be lefty to lefty. There are 2 outs in the 7th. The Keys are already down 4-0. Just can't afford to give up any more runs in this game, as Paul mentioned.
Now we're at a crossroads right now, Jeff. You're right, and that's why the move is being made. They've got to get Harold Williams out here with no more damage. And so the Frederick Gas call to the bullpen brings in the left-hand throwing Huber. This will be his 14th appearance. All of those have been in relief. He has 1 win, no losses. But a 6.39 earned run average in 12 2/3 innings pitched. He's given up double the amount of hits, 23. Struck out 8 and walked 2, and opponents are batting .390 against Jeff. And his sole purpose in life tonight anyway is to retire Harold Williams, the next scheduled hitter.
A tough out is Williams. He's 1 for 3 in the game. All 3 plate appearances against Matt Marenghi. And his 1 hit was a big one, a solo home run in the 4th inning. Jeff Huber takes over. His last outing was on June the 30th. Game 1 of a doubleheader against Kinston. Huber pitched 2/3 of an inning, didn't allow any runs or hits, no walks, no strikeouts. Did not fare in the decision as Kinston defeated the Keys 5-4. He's pitched 1 time against Prince William in 1995. That was back on May the 20th. He worked an inning and 2/3, allowed just 1 base hit and 1 walk and no runs. Prince William won that game 8-1. So Jeff Huber is the 3rd pitcher for the Frederick Keys. He comes in a very difficult situation. The bases are loaded. Harold Williams, a power hitter at the plate. Look at the crowd here at Grove Stadium. Very good Monday night crowd. As Beach Weekend concludes this evening. And we finally had some beach weather. There's Harold Williams, left-handed swinger. He's the designated hitter tonight. Williams hit his 10th home run in the 4th inning. Lefty to lefty. And the first pitch by Huber is taken for a ball. 2 outs in the top of the 7th inning. The bases are full, and the Cannons have a 4-0 lead. Williams fouls off the second pitch. The count is even at 1-1. The Cannons have scored single runs in the 1st, 2nd, 4th, and 6th innings. All of the runs off Matt Marenghi, the starter. Williams grounds it foul into the Keys dugout. He's behind 1 ball and 2 strikes. Andre Newhouse is at third. He's singled with 1 out in the inning. Jason Goligoski is at second base. And Frank Menachino, who just walked, occupies first. Way outside, 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Well, it's nut cutting time, as they say in hunting. As 2-2, Huber does not want to go to a full count, which would start all the runners up. So he's going to make his best pitch right here. It's the payoff pitch for all practical purposes right now.
Grounded to the right side and foul. The count continues 2-2.
Jeff electing to go with a curveball.
That's a souvenir for a Lucky Keys fan. As Andre Newhouse retreats to third base. 2 balls and 2 strikes with 2 outs in the 7th. Pitch to Williams, grounded foul. Good snag there by a fan right by the Keys dugout. Just above the Cable 10 sign. Harold Williams is the batter. Leads the team with 42 runs batted in. Swings and misses. But Jeff Huber comes on in a difficult situation with the bases loaded and facing the cleanup hitter. And he strikes out Harold Williams to end the inning. The 7th inning stretch. Keys still trailing 4-0.
Pontiac's new Sunfire, your ticket to ride with driving excitement, is available now at Frederick Brothers Pontiac, a family-operated dealership since 1919. Frederick Brothers has a full line of 95s ready for you now, including the Bonneville, among the world's exceptional sports sedans, and the sporty but comfortable Grand Am. Located on 355 just south of Urbana, we'll help you drive excitement in a Firebird, what other sports cars wish they had. A full-service dealership with an award-winning service department and body shop. Frederick Brothers Pontiac.
You won't get your hands on a QVC product until we get our hands on it. Some people say we're tough.
Very tough.
This is the drop test, where we make sure a product will hold up during shipping. These have to be rewritten. We stand behind everything we sell, so if somebody returns a product because they don't like the color or something like that,
perfection.
That's okay.
I just don't want them to have to return it. Because it doesn't work.
Back at Grove Stadium, I'm Jeff Walker along with Paul Merrill. We head to the bottom of the 7th inning as the fans are shaking their keys at Grove. 4-0, the Prince William Cannons leading the Frederick Keys. Paul, you made a good observation during our last break. Cannons have 4 runs and 10 hits. The Keys have 2 base hits, only 2 base runners, but both of those runners have been erased.
That's exactly right. Rich Pratt has been pretty awesome, and the 2 runners that have reached have been erased. Pratt picked off Danny Clyburn when he reached on a single. And then Trovan Valdez was caught stealing. So the Keys have not even managed to get a runner to second base. I mean, you know, we hate to harp upon it, but the Keys are definitely struggling offensively right now. There's no question about it.
Trovan Valdez will lead it off in the bottom of the 7th inning. He struck out in the 1st and then singled in the 4th. Valdez, a base hit to left field. Past the third baseman Gonzalez. And that brings some life to this crowd.
You better believe it. They haven't even put their keys away from the 7th inning stretch, and he hammers the first pitch through the hole on the left side, and so the crowd has something to cheer about finally.
So Valdez is 2 for 3. Rolando Avila is the batter. Valdez with very good speed. 24 stolen bases. He was caught stealing earlier in this game. Only been thrown out 9 times in 1995.
Well, he won't be going anywhere. There's no way he'll be running. 4 runs down, and you've got a couple guys capable of getting the ball yard. You know, 4-0 is still respectable, Jeff. We've talked about that, and the Keys still have their 3 at bats. Now, they don't need all 4 runs this inning.
Just chip away at it.
That's right.
The Orioles trailed 7-0 last night against Toronto. They got 2 in the 8th. 7 more in the 9th to win 9-7.
I rest my case.
See if the Keys can do it here this evening. As Avila swings and misses, the count is 1-1. Rolando is 0 for 2 in the game. Grounded out to third in the 1st and flied out to left field in the 4th. If Avila could get aboard, we could see some exciting things by this offense. Tommy Davis, Danny Clyburn, and Jim Foster wait in the wings. No outs in the bottom of the 7th. Keys trail by 4. Rich Pratt goes back to first. Larry McCall coaching first base now. We've seen 3 different coaches at first base for the Keys tonight. Chris Lemp, who just returned to Frederick from Rochester, is coaching over there. Joe Durham started the game coaching in the first base box. And now pitching coach Larry McCall is giving the signals at first base. Joe D is still over at third. 1 ball and 1 strike to Avila. Swing and a miss. Healthy cut by Rolando.
And Rich Pratt still seems to be concerned with the fact that the Keys may be trying to steal. And I guess to some degree you have to be concerned because of the fact that Valdez and Avila both run well. He'd slide-stepped that last pitch, which means he went very quickly to the plate without lifting that leg up. So he's still concerned about the possibility of the Keys trying to attempt a stolen base here, even though they're 4 runs down.
Todd Rizzo, a lefty, is warming up in the Cannons bullpen. Valdez with a very good lead. Avila bunts down the third base line and a good one. Durso has no play. Down to second goes Valdez. And Avila has a bunt single. So back-to-back hits for the Keys. They have 2 on with the heart of the order coming up.
Take a look at this bunt. It's a fantastic bunt by Rolando Avila. And what a heads-up play by catcher Durso. He thinks that maybe Valdez might round second base, and all you got to do is round it by about a foot, and you could be out. And Valdez, to his credit, was alert to that and did not come off that bag, did not round that base. So some great plays right there. A great bunt, a great heads-up thinking play by the catcher, and some smart base running by Valdez to keep from being picked off.
Avila's at first. Valdez at second. Tommy Davis is the batter. Davis 0 for 2 in the game.
Now see, Jeff, like we were talking about off the air, 1 swing of the bat, now the Keys are in this ball game. That's why you don't want to try to steal too much when you're in this situation. You've got guys who can hit the ball out of the park coming up.
Davis leads the team with 13 home runs. And time was called before that pitch.
I thought for a minute when the hands went up that he was going to call a balk, but I guess Davis must have requested time. That's what I started to talk about earlier, Jeff. It's not the umpire. You see the hand go up by the umpire, but the hitter has already requested time, and that's the key point in time, is when did the hitter request time for the umpire? In other words, the hitter might say time, the pitcher might begin to pitch, and the umpire may throw his hands up. The fans of course, the fans can't hear the hitter request a time. So the key thing to remember is it's when did the hitter request time. If the hitter requested time when the pitcher was winding up, the umpire won't grant it.
Tommy Davis, 2 base runners aboard. Has a chance to get the Keys back in the game, and he takes a strike 1. Davis with a lot of power.
Well, I'm just amazed at how much the Cannons are so concerned about the Keys base runners here. Those runners are not going anywhere. Second baseman Menachino's over there bluffing Valdez back. He should just hold his position. Those guys aren't going anywhere with Davis and Clyburn coming up next. There you see, see they're overly, I think the Cannons are overly concerned about the Keys on the bases right now, and they shouldn't be, and it may come back to haunt them because, as you mentioned earlier, they're losing their concentration on the hitter, and it doesn't take much of a mistake for Tommy Davis to burn you.
Tommy Davis usually does take advantage of mistakes by the pitchers. A mistake could be 3 runs right here. Pitch is taken for a ball. The count even at 1-1. Valdez single to begin the inning. He's at second base. Rolando Avila had a perfect bunt single to the third base side. He stands at first. A lot of speed on the bases. Tommy Davis, who has 32 extra base hits, ranking second in the league. Use one here. He grounds it to short. Goligoski to second for one, back to first, and a double play. Goligoski to Menachino to Thomas. 6-4-3, just what the doctor ordered for the pitcher Rich Pratt. Down the third goes Valdez.
Talk about the wind coming out of your sails, to use a cliche. He hits his ball in the nose. It's a 2-hopper, but unfortunately it's right at the shortstop. Goligoski, who makes the easy flip to second baseman Menachino, and the relay to first is in plenty of time to get Davis. And boy, just like that, the Keys rally is pretty much quashed. But they still have another out. They have a runner 90 feet away, and they got a pretty good hitter at the plate in the person of Danny Clyburn.
Still an opportunity to chip away at the lead. Clyburn takes the pitch inside at the knees. He's 1 for 2 in the game. Singled in the second, struck out in the fifth. Clyburn has 43 runs knocked in on the season. Just 2 RBIs in a Frederick Keys uniform. Most of his RBIs with the Winston-Salem Warthogs. 2 balls and no strikes. So Clyburn should get a pretty good pitch to hit. The Keys have plenty of time. They still have 2 more innings after this. That runner, Trovan Valdez at third base, is very important right now. And there's a looping pop-up to the right side. It drops for the base hit. Valdez scores as Clyburn gets his second bloop single of the game. And a very important run for the Keys. That cuts the lead to 3. It's now 4-1.
Yeah, Danny hasn't hit a ball hard enough to break a pane of glass tonight. He's got 2 hits, and more importantly right here, he's got an RBI. And the fans and the Keys have a little something to cheer about as they manage to squeeze a run out of this inning, and with the potential for maybe a couple more here as the inning is yet to be over.
Right fielder Maglio Ordonez was shaded to the left side of right field. He was almost in right center field. We had a long run to get to that hit by Clyburn. Jim Foster, the batter, has the top average of Frederick Keys hitters. Currently batting .283, but is hitless tonight in 2 trips.
Todd Rizzo, a left-hander throwing in the Cannons pen, and Archie Vasquez, a righty, and the premier reliever in the Carolina League, I think, is up and throwing.
That's Archie Vasquez.
There's that changeup, and every time you see that ball go down into the dirt, that's probably the changeup. And you know, I tell you what, like I said before, he's got one of the best, if not the best, changeup in the Carolina League. Does Rich Pratt?
Todd Rizzo and Archie Vasquez in the bullpen for the Cannons. Danny Clyburn aboard at first. 2 outs in the bottom of the 7th. A run home for the Keys. 2-0 to Foster. He grounds it foul.
You know, keep in mind the on-deck hitter for the Keys is Harry Berrios, and he's very capable of taking the ball out of the yard as well. So if Foster can reach here with 2 outs, that would bring the tie run to the plate in the person of Harry Berrios. And so things could get exciting here. Don't go away. Stay away from that refrigerator until the commercial break.
Jim Foster just 2 hits in his last 17 plate appearances. He's been one of the hottest hitters for the Keys throughout much of the season after a slow start. Good defensive play by Durso to keep that ball in front of him. 3-1 to Foster.
There's an outside chance here that they'll start Clyburn up on this 3-1 count.
Pratt has not walked a batter in this game. Keys only had 2 base runners prior to this inning. They have 3 singles here in the 7th. Foster grounds it to short. Goligoski will throw to first. Juan Thomas makes the play at first base, and that's the 3rd out. The Keys do get their first run of the game on 3 base hits. And at the end of 7, it's now the Cannons 4 and the Keys 1. Don't go away.
Coors Light, the silver bullet. It's shipped cold to preserve the clean taste of the Rockies.
Young at Heart, Frederick Senior Magazine, a unique and informative television program designed for citizens 55 and over in the Frederick County area.
The show features public affairs, sports and entertainment, fitness, history, topics that reflect the interests and concerns of today's seniors. I'm Blanche Bourne.
And I'm Ed Lehman, and we'll be your host for Young at Heart, so join us on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
There's Matt Diggs, our center field cameraman. Hello there, Matt. Doing a fine job out there in center field. He's trailing 4-1 the Prince William Cannons, and there's Dan the Man operating the camera from the press box.
What a cushy job that is. Huh? Cushy job.
That's right.
These guys, I swear.
Base camera. 3rd base.
Now, in defense of our cameraman, especially the first base camera there, and the 3rd base camera which you just saw, these guys are risking their lives for you folks out there. They're down on the field with no helmet on, where a lot of foul balls often end up, risking life and limb to bring a fine broadcast to you folks back home. Right here on Cable 10.
That guy's in a safe seat behind the net, behind the plate. We're safe. We have glass in front of us. Joe Durso to lead it off for the Cannons in the 8th against Jeff Huber, the 3rd Keys pitcher. And Durso takes the ball 1. Huber came on last inning with 2 outs and the bases loaded. Harold Williams, the cleanup hitter, was at the plate. It was lefty to lefty, and Huber got the strikeout. Matt Marenghi started the game for Frederick and pitched 5 1/3 innings. He's given up all 4 runs. Durso can't get a hold of that pitch. 1 ball and 1 strike. Still activity in the Keys bullpen. It's Joey Dawley. Two balls and 1 strike to Joe Durso. He's 1 for 3 in the game. Popped out to the catcher in the 2nd, grounded out to second base in the 4th, and singled in the 6th. Grounded foul. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Joe Durso. On deck is Juan Thomas and then Maglio Ordonez. He's finally got on the board in the bottom of the 7th inning with 3 base hits. The count is now full. Danny Clyburn had a bloop single to right to knock in Trovin Valdez. Grounded foul down the 3rd base side.
Well, momentum is a very big part of this game, Jeff, and if the Keys are going to maintain what little momentum they were able to generate in the 7th, they've got to have a good inning defensively right here in the top of the 8th, and that responsibility falls on the shoulders of that young man, Jeff Huber.
3-2 pitch, ground to the 3rd. Tommy Davis with the good glove work and the good strong throw to first.
Good observation, Jeff. Tommy Davis had a very good read on this ball. Early in the year, he would have backed up on that ball, got an in-between hop, and it would have ate him alive. This time, he charges it, and at least if he's not going to catch it in the air, which he does catch it in the air, at least if he's not going to catch it in the air, he's going to get it on a short hop, which is a lot easier to catch than those in-between hops. So you can see right there a difference in Tommy Davis from what we saw earlier in the season, where he would have backed up and had that ball eat him alive. Good read by Tommy Davis at 3rd.
1 out in the top of the 8th. Juan Thomas is the batter. And he takes a strike on the outside corner. Thomas hit a solo home run in the second to account for the second Cannons run. And struck out in the fourth and flied out to left in the sixth. Hits it to the right side. Jeff Michael, the first baseman, will take it unassisted to the bag.
Well, you had to take it unassisted, Jeff. Huber a little slow getting over there. And lefties are a little slower generally covering first because of the way they fall off the mound. And Jeff Michael alerted that, hustled over just in time to get the runner.
So 2 quick outs in the 8th. As Huber has retired all 3 batters he's faced. There's Jeff Michael. That'll bring up Maglio Ordonez. He's 0 for 3. He's grounded out twice and flied out to left. 2 outs and nobody on. Check swing. And a strike. Matt Marenghi started. Ron Kitchen came on in relief and pitched an inning and a third. Jeff Huber is facing his 4th batter. Joey Dawley warming in the bullpen. Ground ball. Shortstop David Lamb throws to Michael for the 3rd out. For the first time tonight, the Keys retire the Cannons in order. 1, 2, 3 in the 8th. We head to the bottom of the inning. Keys trailing the Cannons 4-1.
It's time to take to the road. Beckley's Camping Center offers over 20 brands of motorhomes and travel trailers featuring Coleman folding trailers by Fleetwood. Beckley's has 13 Coleman models to choose from, so you can enjoy the beauty of the great outdoors with a trailer that's right for you. Coleman's sturdy, lightweight construction allows for easy setup, giving you more time to relax with family and friends. Get a head start on your vacation. Visit Beckley's Camping Center, your full-service RV dealer, Route 15, 12 miles north of Frederick.
Looking for an auto?
That's classified information.
Looking for a place to live?
That's classified information.
Looking for a yard sale?
That's classified information.
For all the finds of your life, look to the classified section of the Frederick News Post.
We've got you covered.
Good shot of the moon there as the Keys trail the Cannons 4-1. We head to the bottom of the 8th inning. There's a new pitcher in the game for the Prince William Cannons. Rich Pratt's work is finished. He went 7 innings, allowed 5 hits and 1 run. No walks and 7 strikeouts, and he gives way to Archie Vasquez.
That's right. It's time once again for the Frederick Gas call to the bullpen. Remember, Frederick Gas, it's your best energy value. Oh, yes, sir. All 6'6", 225 pounds of Archie Vasquez comes on here in the bottom of the 8th. He combined earlier this year with Brian Woods on a no-hitter and back in April.
Harry Barrios is the first batter, and he moves Joe Durham there from the third base coaching box. But the ball is foul. 0-1 to Harry Barrios. Archie Vasquez on the year, 1-2. A 2.57 ERA and 12 saves.
Right, that's good for 4th in the Carolina League in the save department.
And Barrios off the glove of the third baseman Gonzalez, and no play by Goligoski. And Harry Barrios is aboard. As the Keys get their 6th hit of the game, and Harry Barrios has his first.
Here it is again, almost a great diving play by Gonzalez at third. He does get his glove on it, kind of steers it over to his partner at shortstop, Goligoski, but Goligoski realizing there's no way he's going to get the fleet-footed Barrios. So the Keys, once again, maintaining that momentum, Jeff. They got that run in the 7th. They got the Cannons out in the 8th, and now they got the leadoff man on here in the bottom of the 8th, so they got a little momentum generated here. Now they got to take advantage of it.
Jeff Michael is the batter. Michael facing the right-handed pitching Vasquez for the first time. Jeff 0 for 2 in the game, grounded to third in the 3rd and flied out to center in the 6th. On deck is Jesse Garcia. Barrios with good speed at first. A quick throw that way by the catcher Durso. Barrios back safely. Ron Thomas holding with the runner Barrios at first. Jeff Michael batting .222 against right-handed pitchers. Swings and misses. 2 balls and 1 strike.
Jeff, think about this. The pitcher's 6'6", the rubber's 60 feet away. Usually your stride length is about as much as your height, so he's about 7 feet from further towards home when he lets go of the ball. So how would you like to face a guy who's letting go of the ball about 53 feet away?
Now ball to third. Gonzalez with a nifty play. The throw to second for the force. Here comes Mike O'Berry.
Well, what Mike is saying is he felt like the second baseman came off the bag, which he might have, but Menachino was alert to that fact. Harry overslid the base, and the baseman tagged him anyway. So either way, he's going to be out, whether he was off the bag or not.
Barry discussing the play with Mike Billings.
Watch it right here now. If Menachino come off the bag too soon, yeah, okay, the runner's safe, but Menachino realized that he might have come off the base too soon, and he tags Harry Barrios, and Harry overslides the base. Right there, he tags him out. Now, I think the umpire called him out on the throw, on the force, and that probably is what O'Berry is complaining about, the fact that there's no way he was out. But Menachino making up for that lapse, tagged the oversliding Barry, and they do record the out.
So Mike O'Berry is back in the dugout, writing something on his lineup card. That'll be the pinch hitter, Chris Kurgan, who's coming up to bat for Jesse Garcia. I was wondering why Michael was staying in the game and not giving way to a pinch hitter. Thought Kurgan might pinch hit for him. But now we know why, because Kurgan will bat for Jesse Garcia. Jeff Michael is aboard at first base as he reaches on the fielder's choice. And the pitch is outside. So Michael will probably move to second base. You see him off of first base. And Chris Kurgan will probably come in to play first. Pitch is outside. 2 balls and no strikes. Kurgan with 36 runs batted in and 8 home runs.
And 36 RBIs, good for second on the Keys Ball Club. Boy, would he love to lose one here.
He was the team leader in RBI for a while when Tommy Davis was slumping.
Oh.
A strike called on the outside part. 2 balls and 1 strike to Chris Kurgan. You mentioned Harry Barrios having trouble with strikeouts. Chris Kurgan has had difficulty as well.
Yeah, 1 out of every 3.6 at bats. He's second only to Harry Barrios.
2-1 is grounded to the right side. Second baseman Menachino throws to second. It gets past the shortstop. Headed for third base is Jeff Michael. He'll reach that base. And hanging on at first base is Chris Kurgan. So the Keys have 2 base runners with 1 out.
Well, a mental lapse by Frank Menachino at second base. He's got the sure out at first, and with a 3-run lead, you want outs. Take a look here. This ball is in the hole. Menachino goes to his left, tries to force the double play situation here, and throws the ball away. And that gives a big break to the Keys. That might be just what they need, Jeff.
Ill-advised throw. As Paul mentioned, he should have just gone to first. He was headed that way anyway.
Right.
And momentum from fielding the ground ball.
Well, the key thing is you only need, what, 4 more outs to end this game. And he's got an out right there if he wants it. He elects not to take it and try to force the play at second, force the issue. And it backfires, and I'll tell you what, good ball clubs take advantage of that. Let's see if the Keys are a good ball club and take advantage of that right here.
Michael is at third. Kurgan at first. 1 out in the 8th. David Lamb rips one to center field. McKinnon has it measured and makes the play. Tagging up is Jeff Michael. The throw is cut off by the second baseman, and Michael scores the Keys' second run. We talked about this last inning. Keys chipping away at the lead. Just get what you can. Then you still have the 9th inning or the rest of this inning for someone to get the big hit.
There it is. David drills this ball pretty good, but it's right at the center fielder. That's the bad news. The good news is it does play to run, so the Keys do take advantage of the error, which allowed Michael to go to third, and they plate the run. Now they've cut the lead in half. It's 4-2.
David Lamb has RBI number 22. Droven Valdez, the batter, slaps it to the left side. Goligoski will go to the bag unassisted and gets the out to end the Keys' half of the 8th inning. And Frederick gets another run in the bottom of the 8th on the RBI sac fly by David Lamb. We head to the 9th. It's Prince William 4, Frederick 2.
Frederick Keys Baseball at Grove Stadium is fun for everyone. The Keys Next homestand is July 21st through the 24th. But there's one standalone Keys game July 10th. That's when the Grove turns into the House of Blues. That's right, Jake and Elwood bring their briefcase full of blues into Frederick for one show only, July 10th, when the Blues Brothers Act brings music and mayhem to the crowds. The Blues Brothers have entertained nationally and for crowds at Chicago Bulls games, so don't miss their only area appearance, July 10th at Grove Stadium. For Keys tickets and information, call 662-0088. Don't miss it.
HTS in June. One word, wow. Now, a ton of words. Orioles baseball. We're taking on the A's, the Mariners, the Angels, the Indians, the Tigers, the Yanks, the Bo Sox, and the Brewers. Live U.S. Senior Open Golf Special. ASA AC Delco Racing Series live. ABP B-Ball. The Soccer 96 Extravaganza. Women's tennis, much more. Wow, HTS in June.
A couple of changes defensively for the Keys. Now playing at first base is Chris Kurgan. He pinch hit in the bottom half of the 8th inning for Jesse Garcia. He stays in the game at first base, but moving from first to second is Jeff Michael. Jeff Huber is still on the mound for Frederick as we head to the top of the 9th inning. The two batters are Paul Gonzalez, Andre Newhouse, and Sandy McKinnon. As the Keys have chipped away at a 4-0 lead, it's now 4-2. Frederick has scored single runs in the 7th and 8th innings. Well, what's going on around the Carolina League?
All right, interesting thing happening down in Winston-Salem where the game has been tied up 5-5 in the 8th inning. Lynchburg and Winston-Salem tied at 5 in the 8th. In the 8th inning also, Salem is up on Wilmington by a score of 8-3. They're getting ready to restart that game down in Kinston where it's 2-2 tie in the 4th.
Here we're playing in the top of the 9th inning, and Paul Gonzalez swings and misses at a Huber pitch. It's 0-1. Gonzalez 0 for 3. He's grounded out to short twice and flied out to center. Currently batting .225. Swing and a miss once again. Joey Dawley continues to warm in the Keys bullpen. He was up last inning. Jeff Huber has faced 4 cannons and retired all of them. A strikeout to end the 7th inning with the bases loaded, and 3 groundouts in the 8th. Pitch is way outside, 1 and 2. Huber wasted one there. Looking ahead to the bottom of the 9th inning, the 2 batters for Frederick: Rolando Avila, Tommy Davis, and Danny Clyburn.
That'll play.
It's okay with me. You got a speedy guy up first, and the power men come in. Gonzalez strikes out. Huber gets his 2nd K of the game.
Oh, I don't know what kind of pitch that was, but if Huber knows how to load one up, that's what that one looked like. Watch his pitch drop right here. Whoops, there it goes.
Well, right off the
I
table.
ain't gonna say anything.
Nico Berry to visit the mound. Jim Foster. Ladies and gentlemen, the make a pitching change. Huber did his job. He retired all 5 men he faced. Now Joey Dawley will come in to face Andre Newhouse, who is the 2 batter. Newhouse is a right-handed batter. Berry going with the percentages.
All right, and another Frederick gas call to the bullpen brings on Dawley, as you mentioned. This will be his 24th appearance. No wins, 2 losses, a 6.47 run average. He does have a save. And 32 innings pitched. He's given up 41 hits. He has walked 22, struck out 29. Opponents are batting .306 against Joey. Dawley. Hello, Dawley. He's a 6'4", 200-pounder, and he hails from Moreno Valley, California. This is his 3rd year of professional baseball.
Well, they pitched in Saturday's game against the Cannons. Worked 2/3 of an inning, allowed a base hit and a run. Struck out 1 in the game that Prince William won 6-1. The run Dawley gave up was a solo home run. Andre Newhouse. In the 9th inning.
You did have to bring that up, didn't you?
Well, he's
oh, yes,
got a chance to redeem himself now.
There you go. Jeff Walker, folks, is on top of everything.
Brian Brewer, a left-hander, is warming in the Keys bullpen.
And he's looked good. Moon over Frederick. What would you call that? Is that a waxing or a waning?
A little bit of both, I guess.
Never could keep that straight.
Jim Foster, the catcher. New pitcher Joey Dawley. hasn't had much activity as of late. His last appearance prior to Saturday was June the 20th against Lynchburg. That's what rainouts and solid starting pitching will do for you. Dolly will face Andre Newhouse. He has 2 hits tonight, both singles. He's also flied out to right. 4 hits in the series for Newhouse. 4 for 10. Nobody on, 1 out. Top of the 9th inning. Keys trail 4-2 to the Prince William Cannons. Cannons trying to gain a sweep. They were 2-9 the first 11 games of the second half before winning the first 2 here in Frederick. And a pop-up to the right side. First baseman Kurgan in foul territory. Kurgan makes the play for the 2nd out.
Well, I think Prince William had a little bit of a letdown after wrapping up the first half title, and I guess that's to be expected to some degree. But they've got that real fine pitching staff that can quickly get them back in the standings.
Prince William kind of limped to that first half title. They finished with a 37-33 record. If you remember that final week, they had a game lead.
It was a great race down there.
Everybody kept losing
in
the Northern Division.
Wilmington had a shot at it. Lynchburg.
Sandy McKinnon, the leadoff batter. He's 1 for 4 tonight. He struck out twice. His lone hit was a single in the 3rd. The right side and out of play.
Keys pitchers now have retired 6 in a row, and that's that momentum thing we were talking about, Jeff. You got to maintain that momentum. It's a big part of this game, and the Keys relievers here have risen to that occasion and have been able to hold the Cannons at bay, while the offense has been able to scratch out, and I do mean scratch out, a couple of runs.
Jeff Huber really came up big in relief. Go back to the 7th inning, bases loaded, cleanup hitter up.
We said that was the turning point again. That was going to be the turning point. He had to get him, and he did.
1-1 to McKinnon, a drive to deep center. Avila back, still going back on the warning track. Rolando Avila makes the catch for the 3rd out, and the Cannons are retired in the 9th inning. Keys' last chance coming up. They trail 4-2.
Didn't think that ball was going to go that far, Jeff. There's no breeze. The flag is hanging limp at the post. And Avila got on his horse, went back and got it on the track.
The Keys need 2 in the bottom of the 9th to tie. Avila will be the leadoff hitter in the 9th. He'll be followed by Tommy Davis and Danny Clyburn. As you look into the Cannons dugout, they're trying to hold on to a 2-run lead and gain a sweep of the Keys. Frederick's homestand continues tomorrow as they begin a 3-game series with the Salem Avalanche. Cable 10 will televise the games Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday's game is at the regular start time of 7:05. Our pre-game show starts at 6:45. And Thursday, the game begins at 6:35. So we'll be on the air at 6:15 on Thursday.
All right. Archie Vasquez will stay on here to face the Keys in the bottom of the 9th, and all we need is 1 base runner, Jeff, and the Keys will have the tie run coming to the plate.
Avila, a good guy to have up to get things started. He's a leadoff batter for the Keys in some games. He bats 1st or 2nd in the order. Usually against right-handed pitchers, he's at the top of the order. Avila in the game, 1 for 3. He had a bunt single in the 7th inning. The big guys are coming up after Avila. Tommy Davis, Danny Clyburn. Those two have 24 home runs between them. Avila trying to get on base. Vasquez's first pitch is a strike called. Good to see Rolando bunting. You mentioned earlier in the broadcast that you'd like to see him bunt a little bit more, and it paid off in the 7th. Check swing, he slaps it to the left side. Gonzalez has no play.
How about that?
Avila aboard again, and he's given a base hit.
Well, this is a swinging bunt. Check swinging bunt. He puts it in a pretty good place. And you're going to see third baseman Gonzalez simply overrun it a little bit and goes off the tip of his. I think the ball took a little bit of a bad hop there for him, and that's why the official score has ruled a base hit. And boy, just what the Keys needed. They got a runner on, which brings the tie run to the plate in the person of Tommy Davis.
Gonzalez knew he had to hurry. You got a speedy guy like Avila going down the line. Got to get to that ball quickly. So Avila with his second infield hit of the game. Tommy Davis is the batter. Davis 0 for 3 in the game. Grounded out into a double play in the 7th inning with 2 runners on.
Well, you want to hear some noise. Tommy hits one out here. You'll hear some noise that'll break the Richter scale.
2 balls and no strikes. A good save by Joe Durso. Davis has 2 hits in the series, a double and a single. Had 2 of the Keys' 3 hits yesterday. Rolando Avila at first base. Juan Thomas is holding with him. Archie Vasquez is on the mound. Davis fouls it off to the right side. It's 2 balls and 1 strike to Tommy Davis. Vasquez on in relief of Rich Pratt.
Yeah, he was a 43rd round draft pick back in '91 out of the Padres organization. The Padres gave up to him when they had the big organizational purge and they got rid of everybody, and he was one of them to go. And was picked up by the Cannons, and he's put real well this year. ERA of 2.57.
2-1 to Davis, taken high. Tommy Davis represents the tie run. The Keys trail 4-2 in the bottom of the 9th inning. No outs. Rolando Avila is at first base. He had a check swing base hit down the third base side. Danny Clyburn, another power hitter, is on deck. Davis should get a good pitch here. 3-1. He drives it to the right side. On comes the right fielder Ordonez, and he made the catch.
Oh boy, that would have been interesting had that ball gotten by. Give Ordonez a lot of credit. This ball is a slicing liner to the opposite field, and it's a great defensive play by right fielder Maglio Ordonez. Sliding. I think he hits his knee on a sprinkler head or something as he's grimacing as he was walking back to his position. Tough break for Tommy Davis and the Keys right there.
Danny Clyburn. 2 for 3 in the game is Clyburn. He has an RBI.
Clyburn yet to hit a home run while with the Keys. I can't think of a better time than right now.
He's knocked in 3 runs in a Frederick uniform. Had 11 home runs for Winston-Salem before being traded. And he takes a strike. 1-1 is the count. Both of Clyburn's hits this evening are bloop singles. This is his 9th game in a Frederick Keys uniform. Fouls it off. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Clyburn has started in left field 6 times. Has been the designated hitter 3 times. Rolando Avila is at first base. Clyburn now represents the tie run. With 1 out in the bottom of the 9th inning. Vasquez pitch. Grounded to the left side. Goligoski goes to second. Safe at second base is Avila. He beat the throw.
Oh boy. Oh boy. We'll have a nice little argument here. I tell you what, base umpire Mike Billings has had a rough night tonight. Take a look at this.
Is out on the field.
Oh yeah, I would be too.
Close play. Billings is not a small guy, and he tosses Huppert. The former Orioles player and now manager of the Cannons has been thrown out of the game. Billings not backing down.
Well, I'd have been out there arguing too. I don't know if he was safe or out, but it was worth going out there to argue. The throw was there in time. We couldn't tell from the replay because his body was kind of, the way he slid into the bag, it blocked the bag from our vantage point. And of course, the umpire Billings was right there. Now he's had some tough calls tonight. Let's take a look right here.
I believe he was safe.
Yeah, I'm not so sure you're right, Jeff. I tend to agree now that I've had a couple looks at the replay. Like I said, it's tough from our vantage point because he was blocking the base. And Billings has had some bang-bang calls out there. He's from Pembroke Pines, Florida. And he's had his share of tough calls tonight.
Huppert has been thrown out. The Keys have 2 base runners with 1 out in the bottom of the 9th inning. The tie run is at first base. Danny Clyburn, who reaches on the fielder's choice. Rolando Avila is at second base. And the batter will be Jim Foster, and now Huppert throwing something out on the field.
Well, that'll probably be a fine. A little excitement here at Harry Grove Stadium. Dave's going to get every ounce of his, all his 2 cents. Well, he's going to get it all in.
Billings, the umpire, is not going to pick up that bucket or whatever it is that was thrown out onto the field.
And the bat boy's going to risk life and limb. He'll go out and get it. And Huppert now finally leaves the dugout, and he'll be heading into the dressing room. Well, a manager's got to go to bat for his players, Jeff. That's part of the game. If a manager thinks his players have been wronged, he's got to show his support for his players, and that's why managers do go out and argue. Not always necessarily to argue whether the call was right or wrong. You got to protect your players. And Dave Huppert was protecting his team right there and his players as he heads for the locker room.
Huppert getting a little ribbing from some of the Keys fans as he leaves the stadium. Jim Foster, 0 for 3 tonight. Has been one of the hottest Keys hitters as of late. He rips it to deep center field. McKinnon way back. McKinnon at the fence. It's gone. A 3-run homer by Jim Foster. And the Keys have won it 5-4 in the bottom of the 9th inning. Listen to this crowd. Foster picks a great time to get just his 2nd home run of the year and his 1st ever here at Grove Stadium. And Joe Durso still arguing with the umpire.
Well, it doesn't get any better than this, folks. Jimmy Foster, only 1 home run on the year. We've knocked him for his lack of power, lack of RBI production. He loses one here over the left center field fence, plates 3 runs. What a finish, Jeff. Unbelievable.
Another fantastic finish on Cable 10.
There you go. Congratulations. The order right now is Jimmy Foster is the hero.
This is the kind of game that can turn things around in a season. Hopefully the Keys can turn things around. That gets the offense going. 5-4, a victory for the Keys. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll have our post-game show, including the naming of our Gold's Gym Player of the Game.
Pontiac's new Sunfire, your ticket to ride with driving excitement, is available now at Frederick Brothers Pontiac, a family-operated dealership since 1919. Frederick Brothers has a full line of 95s ready for you now, including the Bonneville, among the world's exceptional sports sedans, and the sporty but comfortable Grand Am. Located on 355 just south of Urbana, we'll help you drive excitement in a Firebird what other sports cars wish they had. A full-service dealership with an award-winning service department and body shop. Frederick Brothers Pontiac.
Watch the Keys close up on Cable 10.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
We want you to get on board. We don't want you sitting on the dock of the bay when the ship is out to sea howling bon voyage. Get on board. We want you now.
What an exciting finish here at Grove Stadium as the Keys come back and defeat the Prince William Cannons 5-4 in the bottom of the 9th inning on a 3-run home run by Jim Foster. But Paul, it all started back in the 7th inning. We talked about how the Keys only had 2 base runners going into the 7th inning, and guys like Avila and Valdez getting on base, setting the table for the other guys, the RBI guys, and the Keys come back and start the rally in the 7th inning and come back and get 5 runs in the last 3 innings.
Well, that's absolutely right. The game's going along. The fans, the players are all twiddling their thumbs. It's so boring because the Keys offense is just anemic. And all of a sudden we get a couple scratch hits. The Keys take advantage of it. And there you see the Gold's Gym player of the game slate on the screen. And that Gold's Gym player of the game tonight is Jim Foster, who loses one here in the bottom of the 9th with 2 runners aboard to give the Keys a dramatic 5-4 9th inning victory. So congratulations to Jim Foster for being the Gold's Gym player of the game. For membership information, you call 698-GOLD.
So the Keys got single runs in the 7th and 8th inning, and that's what set the table. They were down 4-0, and then after the 8th with those 2 single runs in the 7th and 8th, they narrowed the gap to 4-2, and that gave them a chance to win in the 9th inning.
Well, that's the key thing, Jeff, is they didn't try to score 4 runs back in that 7th inning. We talked about that. All they need is a couple, get a little momentum built up. They did that. The pitching staff responded by going out, and for the first time in the game, got 3 up and 3 down. That kept the momentum till the Keys came back in the 8th. They got another run. Now, as you say, they're back in the ball game, and the stage was set in the 9th inning.
And a big play there in the 9th inning. Rolando Avila called safe on an attempted force out at second base. That really turned the game around and allowed Foster to get his big blast.
There's so many little things that can determine an outcome of the game in baseball, and that's good hustle by Avila right there to force the issue at second base. It was a bang-bang play. Could have gone either way. It goes in the Keys' favor, and as we mentioned, good teams take advantage of opportunities like that. Tonight, the Keys were a good team. They took advantage of it.
And the Keys bullpen did a heck of a job. 3 relievers coming into the game, limiting the Bulls to no runs in the final 3 2/3, and that's really what kept them in it and gave them a chance because they trailed 4-0 after Matt Marenghi left the game. But the bullpen really came up big tonight, keeping Frederick in the game.
Sure, absolutely right. We mentioned when it was 4-0 there, and the game was on the line. Huber comes in and strikes out Williams, and that's when the lift began. That's when the momentum shift began to go over to the Keys dugout. And you're right. Let's give a lot of credit to the Keys bullpen. Joey Dollar, the winner in relief. Got to be happy for that guy.
The Keys have been struggling offensively almost the entire season. They get a lot of clutch hits here this evening. What can this kind of game, this kind of victory do for a struggling ball club?
Well, it's everything. It means everything in the world to them. You can talk to any of those players right now and the coaching staff and then tell you this is exactly what the Frederick Keys needed right now. They had been struggling. They managed to scratch out a couple runs, and when they needed the big hit, the big run, they got it. And this is the kind of thing that can turn the team around.
So Joey Dawley gets the victory. Archie Vasquez is the losing pitcher. We'd like to remind you our next broadcast of Keys baseball is this coming Wednesday when the Salem Avalanche will be here at Grove Stadium. Game time is 7:05, and our Keys pregame show begins at 6:45. We'll also be on the air Thursday night. That's a special start time because of the fireworks show after the game. Thursday night's game begins at 6:35, and our pregame show begins at 6:15. So that wraps it up here from Grove Stadium. For Paul Merrill and the rest of the Cable 10 crew, I'm Jeff Wachter saying so long. Once again, the final score, the Keys defeat the Cannons 5-4 in the bottom of the 9th inning on a 3-run homer by Jim Foster. Good night, everybody.
The Royal Photographic Society emphasises this.
I think it, in many cases, has been crucial because the use of the printed image, as it be a photograph or a diagram, is integral to all teaching techniques. And of course, modern printing is very reliant in itself on photographic processes. Printed text comes via photographs. Images which may not have been photographs originally but have been generated in a computer may well have been photographed in the intermediate stages of coming to print. So almost anything that you read it has been photographed at some point. And of course, photographs as raw material for teaching are universal.
When it comes to science, no branch has been unaffected. The whole of the modern electronics industry is based on photographic images to produce the electronic circuits without which electronics couldn't exist. X-ray photographs, sensitive to invisible radiation, are now a commonplace in medicine. And then there's the whole wide arena of astronomy.
Classically, astronomy started, of course, by people looking through telescopes, but as soon as photographic emulsions with a reasonable performance were available, they were at once put to record the images coming from telescopes. And virtually all of our knowledge of the universe is available via the photographic medium only. It has the property of integrating light falling on it. In other words, if you expose the emulsion for a very long period of time, it will add up the light which it receives so that even very faint objects can be recorded.
So the camera has helped us to look inwards into the core of our own bodies and outwards far into space. Finally, I leave it to Paul Womble, director of the Photographers Gallery in London, to pinpoint the one photograph that has altered our vision of the world more than any other.
If I was thinking of photography and looking at the images which have changed our perception of the world, what comes to mind is actually the space photographs produced by NASA. There's this photograph taken in 1972 by an astronaut on one of the trips to the moon, and it's a colour photograph of the Earth. You can see Africa, you can see the clouds, you can see the sea. There is no demarcations about nations, no other kind of marks on this planet. And it was, I think it was the first photograph ever taken where we could see the Earth from outer space. We were looking back, and it looked very fragile. This image created what we seem to know, I think, partly created the environmental movement and the green movement, because we could see the Earth for the first time, as maybe other people or many space people could see it before. We were seeing something which was very fragile, and it created a totally different vision of what the Earth's future might be.
It's really a fantastic sight through that section. A minute ago during that auto maneuver, the reticle swept across the Mediterranean. You could see all of North Africa absolutely clear, all of Portugal, Spain, southern France, all of Italy absolutely clear. Just a beautiful sight. Roger, we all envy you the view up there.
That edition of Omnibus was compiled and presented by Joy Boatman. The producer was Jenny Hargreaves. Increasingly, the world's cities are becoming gridlocked by traffic as commuters take to their cars. Governments are trying to avert possible environmental disaster by implementing policies which will emphasize less use of the motor car and more use of public transport. But will they be able to persuade people around the world to get out of their cars to improve the environment? In The World Today, in an hour and a half, Simon Derry finds out what ideas there are to move people effectively and efficiently around cities. It's 2 hours, Greenwich Mean Time.
BBC World Service o Febbia quest'autumn with Newsday. The Israelis hint that their troops may start pulling out of the Palestinian West Bank. Violence erupts in Northern Ireland as a British soldier is released from jail, and D-Day in the race for the leadership of Britain's Conservative Party. The news is read by Paul Jenkinson.
Israeli leaders have given their clearest indication yet of the extent of their proposed redeployment of troops in the occupied West Bank. Israeli radio quoted the Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and Foreign Minister Shimon Peres as saying an immediate pullout was planned in 4 towns. Northern Ireland has seen its worst street disturbances since last year, after the early release of a soldier jailed for life for killing a Roman Catholic teenager at a checkpoint. In Catholic areas of Belfast, Lurgan and Londonderry, more than 100 vehicles were set on fire. The contenders for the Conservative Party leadership in Britain, the Prime Minister, John Major, and his former cabinet colleague, John Redwood, have made their final formal appeal to Conservative MPs ahead of today's ballot. Afterwards, Mr. Major said he was convinced that he would be re-elected by a decisive margin. At a meeting with Russian negotiators, the Chechen leader, Djukhar Dudayev, is reported to have offered to give up the leadership of his movement if Russia recognizes Chechnya as a sovereign state. A Russian official said Mr. Dudayev made the offer on Sunday night. The Rwandan government has declared today a day of national commemoration to mark the capture of the capital, Kigali, by forces of the mainly Tutsi Rwandan Patriotic Front exactly a year ago. A BBC correspondent says the events will be overshadowed by memories of the genocide last year. 4 Latin American coffee producers have agreed to suspend all coffee sales. The countries involved, Colombia, Costa Rica, El Salvador and Honduras, say their decision is a concerted attempt to force up coffee prices. That's the summary.
High-level talks are due to resume later today between Israeli and Palestinian negotiators, and they'll no doubt be discussing the latest offer on the table from the Israelis. Israel yesterday hinted at the withdrawal soon of Israeli troops from some areas of the occupied West Bank. This is one of the main demands of the Palestinians in the agreement on the much-delayed expansion of autonomy. So what exactly are the Israelis proposing? The question I put to their government spokesman, Uri Dromi.
He said that 4 towns, which are Jenin, Tulkarem, Nablus and Kalkilia, will be the first towns from which we will redeploy. And when we say the first, we mean we are willing to start immediately after an agreement has been reached.
But do you think that this offer on the table is going to improve talks which should continue between the PLO leader and the Israeli negotiators this week?
I definitely hope so. It was our position from day one that once we sign the agreement, we are very serious about implementing it. And the key factor is, of course, security. If security can be guaranteed and the plan can be worked out, which will guarantee it, then we are seriously willing to move forward. And this is exactly what we are trying to do. I hope that tomorrow, in the coming days, when Mr. Peres and Mr. Arafat meet again, they will manage to overcome the last sticking point.
Israeli government spokesman Uri Dromi. So is the Israeli proposal going to give a boost to continuing negotiations with the Palestinians? Lise Doucette is our correspondent in Jerusalem.
Yes, but the Palestinians have also made it clear that it's not enough to withdraw from some of the towns and some of the villages. Their greatest fear is that they will be left with a checkerboard in the West Bank, whereby they have no connection between one village and another town. They will be like they are in Gaza, stuck in one place, surrounded by Israelis, and having Jewish settlers within the area which they are said to control. It's exactly the situation they don't want to achieve, and hence we have this great stumbling block.
But at least the Israelis surely are talking about deployment now, or at least when an agreement is reached.
Well, they are talking about a troop redeployment, but it's not the full troop redeployment that the Palestinians want. The Israelis, for reasons of security, fearing for the safety of these some 100,000, more than 100,000 Jewish settlers living among 1 million Palestinians. They want to control the roads leading to Jewish settlements. They want, according to Palestinian officials, the right to go back into places when there are attacks against Israelis or a resurgence of violence. So in effect, they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to give the Palestinians the beginning of some kind of a control, but they're always retaining the right to go back and do what they've always been doing.
Well, is this an offer that the PLO chairman Yasser Arafat and the foreign minister Shimon Peres can at least talk about when they meet? Do you think it's going to take them on from their Saturday marathon session?
Well, I think what the Israelis are now talking publicly about, this readiness to withdraw from most towns and villages in the West Bank, except the most sensitive areas, and especially towns like Hebron, where settlers live smack in the heart of the city. That has been on the table, it seems, for some time. Officials in one way or another have been hinting at this. So I think that was very much at the heart of the talks in the Saturday marathon session. I think they got to the point where they could go no further. The Israelis say it was the Palestinians which asked for a break. And I think the Palestinians are in a very, very difficult situation. It has haunted them throughout this whole process. It's one of the reasons why they hesitated before taking Gaza and Jericho first. Well, if it's first, what comes next? And Mr. Arafat has been in Gaza for 1 year now, and he still doesn't have anything else, and he's still only being offered a partial solution. At the end of the day, they would like a Palestinian state. Of course, that is not what the Israelis, or at least most of the Israelis, want to establish, and therefore the Palestinians fear that by giving in now to some of the Israeli offers, they will be locked into something that they really don't want. They don't want a partial solution. They want the whole cake.
Lise Doucette on the line from Jerusalem. Violence flared on the streets of Northern Ireland yesterday after the early release from jail of the British soldier Lee Clegg. He was sentenced to life imprisonment for killing a Roman Catholic girl 5 years ago in a shooting incident in Northern Ireland. But Private Clegg had served just 4 years of the life sentence when he walked free yesterday, Monday, on the orders of the Northern Ireland Secretary. The move unleashed an angry reaction in Belfast and sparked the worst unrest in the city since paramilitary groups called a ceasefire last year. Mark Devonport reports.
Republican protesters marched through the streets of West Belfast, making clear their feelings about Private Lee Clegg's release. As they set off, I saw another van set on fire on the Falls Road. Youths pelted the burning vehicle with milk bottles. It's not just Sinn Féin who are annoyed about the Clegg decision. A banner has been hung across the Shankill Road in Belfast, demanding that loyalist prisoners should be freed. But for the government, the Northern Ireland Minister, Malcolm Moss, sought to play down any impact the release might have on the overall political situation.
It has little bearing on the peace process. We want politicians of all parties to get involved in substantial talks, and this particular case should be viewed as a one-off, but judged on the merits of the individual case and not as any political decision.
Whatever the politics, this is an intensely emotional issue for those personally involved in the shooting which Private Clegg was jailed for in West Belfast in September 1990. Markovich Gorman survived the burst of fire which killed her friend Karen Riley.
He's conned the British people into thinking that he was just doing his duty. But, you know what I mean? He murdered Karen Riley. He's here to uphold the law.
The big question now is what long-term impact this might have on the peace process. Will the burning cars and lorries turn out to be a short-term reaction, or are they a harbinger of more trouble ahead?
Mark Devonport. Well, the Irish Republic has been closely involved in the Northern Ireland peace negotiations. So what is Dublin's reaction to the release of Private Lee Clegg? I've been talking to Desmond O'Malley, a member of the Irish Parliament and spokesman for the Progressive Democrats on Northern Ireland.
Well, the Irish government is very disappointed and indeed dismayed at this decision. They had already conveyed their views to the British government, explaining why they thought it would be unwise, particularly at a time like this of great sensitivity in terms of the peace process. And their view seems to have been borne out by the reaction in Belfast, which was what one might really have expected.
Well, how damaging do you think this is for the Northern Ireland peace process?
Well, I hope that in the longer term it won't be damaging, but certainly in the short term it isn't helpful. And it may well give encouragement to those who might like to see the peace process come to an end.
Now, there's been a lot of speculation that this decision was determined by political motives.
There is. That view is widely held in Ireland, at least, because of the fact that it was announced on the day before the British Tory leadership election. And it seems that one has to see it to some extent in that context. And I think that that's very regrettable if the connection between the two events is as it is believed here to be.
Well, do you think it damages ultimately the credibility of the British government and its commitment and seriousness to the peace process?
Well, I hope that ultimately it won't, but as I've said, it doesn't help it in the short term. And it makes people somewhat suspicious and rather concerned about the whole situation. It seems wrong that the judicial process and a decision which had been come to by a court and by two courts of appeal should be effectively overturned in this way. And the fact that it's a member of the British Army in whose favour this decision has been made obviously makes people look at the matter here with a somewhat jaundiced eye, because there doesn't seem to be a balanced sense of justice in this.
Desmond O'Malley. Today is D-Day for the Conservative Party here in Britain. It's the day Conservative members of Parliament vote to elect their new leader. So will it be an endorsement of the status quo with the re-election of John Major, or will the MPs opt for change and vote for the challenger John Redwood? Both men spent the last full day of the leadership campaign trying to win over the undecided, those still looking to commit their vote. This was John Major's message last night.
Once this is concluded, this leadership exercise, there will then be no doubt about the leadership of the Conservative Party. The speculation and the difficulty will be put to one side, and I think the Conservative Party will unite against our common opponents.
The Prime Minister, John Major, John Redwood, who has promoted himself as a man of much-needed change, had this to say.
This election is about substance and style. It has posed the question, how can the Conservatives break the electoral curse and start winning again?
John Redwood. So, in a matter of hours, the rival campaign teams of John Major and John Redwood will know whether their strategies worked, and the Conservative Party may have itself a leader after almost 2 weeks without one. I've been talking to our political correspondent, Philippa Thomas, about the mood in Westminster, the seat of the British Parliament.
Well, I found it surprising that on the last day of campaigning on Monday, in fact, it felt a bit like the lull before the storm, because MPs, instead of being out talking to us and to the camera crews on the greens around Westminster, were mostly inside, plotting in the corridors and the tea rooms, the real nitty-gritty persuasion going on. And I think that's also a sign of the fact that it's really hard to tell which way this campaign is going.
Well, obviously, endless gossip and speculation, but are there any indications of the ways the Conservative members of Parliament are thinking?
Well, I think it would be extremely stupid of me to make any specific predictions, but I can say this. Most of us expect that Mr. Major is actually going to win. Technically, that is. He's going to get the majority of MPs, 165 votes he needs. But that's not really the question anymore. The question is, yes, he'll win technically, but since he called this election and wanted a convincing moral victory, what sort of majority is he going to get? It has to be a thumping big majority. And so we're talking about he has to get 200 votes, that is about 60% of his party, or maybe he has to get up to 220, 2/3 of his party, to stem the pressure for him to stand down. So it's rather perverse. We know Mr. Major is likely to win, but that might not be enough to satisfy his critics.
Well, John Major himself, I believe, has said that if he wins this first ballot by just one vote, that would be enough. But that's not what the Major camp was saying at the beginning of this contest.
Absolutely. They've scaled down their expectations. They're now saying a win is a win is a win. But I think it would be the case that if Mr. Major was seen to scrape through, there'd have been little point in calling the contest, and a huge number of his MPs would not have voted for him. Therefore, he wouldn't have enough authority to carry the Conservatives through to the next election. Now, Mr. Major is very much a survivor. He's a very stubborn man. He does believe he's the best consensus candidate. So we may have the prospect of a struggle between him saying he has to go on and others advising him to stand down if he only just clears the technical hurdle. That, after all, is what happened to Margaret Thatcher back in 1990.
Philippa Thomas, and of course there'll be full coverage of the vote and the results later in the day. You're listening to Newsday in the World Service of the BBC. The British Catholic Relief Agency, CAFOD, says there have been a number of violent attacks on relief workers in Rwanda. Several aid groups are considering pulling out of the country as a result. CAFOD says insecurity has become a key issue for aid agencies in Rwanda, adding that it's not clear who's responsible for the attacks. Our East Africa correspondent, Roger Hearing, reports.
Relief agencies poured into Rwanda after the civil war ended last year to help in the reconstruction of the shattered country. but many found it was hard to help people from one side of the deeply divided community without being labelled as enemies by those from the other side. Also, as the CAFOD statement suggests, there's been a recent rise in more random crime and violence. The agency says it has a list of 26 separate incidents involving several different aid agencies. There have been physical attacks on aid workers, hijackings, robberies, and the stealing of essential equipment. In one incident, CAFOD says a worker with its sister agency, Caritas, was forced to the ground by armed men and held for 5 hours while they attempted to rape his wife. Maurice McPartland, CAFOD's project officer in Rwanda, said it was not clear who was responsible for the attacks, and even when soldiers were involved, aid workers were not sure their actions were sanctioned by the government. But he said it was important that the international community continued to support what he called the current fragile peace in Rwanda. United Nations personnel have reported some problems in recent months with many robberies and hijackings of vehicles. The UN authorities have responded with an informal curfew for their staff. But up to now, independent aid agency workers have not seemed to be targeted so frequently. Rwandan government ministers have admitted some problems with maintaining law and order when there are so many unpaid soldiers remaining since the war and no adequately working police force. They say unless aid promises are fulfilled and the government has enough money to function properly, no improvement can be expected.
Roger Hearing reporting. In just a few hours from now, child workers in the garment industry in Bangladesh should officially be a thing of the past. The Garment Manufacturers and Exporters Association is preparing to sign an agreement to that effect with the United Nations child and labour organisations. Currently, between 12 and 30,000 children work in the garment business in Bangladesh, and there's been growing international pressure to end this practice. Dr. Mohammed Haroon Rashid is the Secretary of Labour and Manpower in Bangladesh and has been closely involved in the agreement.
From the 31st of October 1995, all children working in the garment factories who are below 14 years of age are supposed to be terminated and put to a schooling program which will be developed by UNICEF, BJMEA, in cooperation with the Primary and Mass Education Division of the Government of Bangladesh. A part of the cost will be borne by the Bangladesh Garment Manufacturing and Exporters Association, and a part of the cost will be borne, particularly of the schooling aspect, will be borne by the UNICEF.
You say that it's an ideal program, but of course it is not without its critics. Many say that the children will simply leave one job to go to another, or worse still, many may end up in prostitution or begging or on the streets because the families need that money.
We are going to, under this program, there is going to be a maintenance allowance provided to the children who would be separated from their jobs. And secondly, there is going to be an effort to also provide them with some supplementary source of income. And thirdly, we are also exploring the possibility of providing them with food support.
Dr. Mohammed Haroon Rashid from the government of Bangladesh. British and Chinese officials are due to meet in London later today for more talks about the future of Hong Kong. This meeting of the Sino-British Joint Liaison Group on Hong Kong is likely to be held in a more friendly atmosphere than previous encounters because Britain and China have finally reached agreement on how to finance a deal to build a new airport in Hong Kong. This came after 6 years of acrimonious negotiations on the future of the British colony, which reverts to China in 2 years. James Miles is a former BBC correspondent in Beijing. What is he expecting from the talks?
Well, officially, these talks are secret. The agenda has not been disclosed to the public. But we know that there are still several major outstanding issues between the two sides, in spite of a spate of agreements between them just in the last few weeks. One of the biggest issues still outstanding is that of Hong Kong's plans to build a new container port, a much-needed project. And the British side is hoping that the Chinese, having shown signs in the last few weeks of being more willing to reach agreement, might give their approval to this project.
Well, to what extent has the deal about the financing of the Hong Kong airport helped to improve the general atmosphere in the talks between China and Britain over Hong Kong?
Well, I think you have to look back further than that, to the agreement last month between the two sides over the setting up of a court of final appeal. This had really been the biggest bone of contention between Britain and China for some months, and it was a major political issue for the Chinese.
Now, you've mentioned that there are outstanding issues on which Britain and China have to agree. Are there many more before the handover date in 2 years' time?
There are many other issues which still have to be thrashed out by the Joint Liaison Group in the remaining 2 years. Maybe not issues as big as the airport or the Court of Final Appeal or the container terminal, but many other nitty-gritty issues which absolutely have to be solved if the two sides have any hope of achieving the smooth transition that they keep talking about.
Now, of course, the man who is overseeing the whole process as far as the British is concerned is Governor Christopher Patten. What is his state? I mean, do the Chinese still consider him a devil?
I don't think the Chinese will ever really talk to him. He would like very much to meet senior Chinese officials. The Chinese want to avoid him and talk straight to the British, and the real powers in China's view are Beijing and London, and certainly not the governor of Hong Kong.
James Miles. And still to come on Newsday, rumblings of a photo trade war between the United States and Japan. And what happens to Vietnamese boat people who are forced to go back home? Now, a reminder of our top stories. Israeli leaders have given their clearest indication so far of the extent of their proposed redeployment of Israeli troops in the occupied West Bank. Northern Ireland has seen its worst street disturbances since last year, following the early release from prison of a British soldier convicted of killing a Roman Catholic teenager. The Chechen separatist leader, Dzhokhar Dudayev, has repeated his offer to stand down if Russia recognizes Chechen sovereignty. And Rwanda is marking the first anniversary of the capture of the capital Kigali by the Tutsi-led Rwandan Patriotic Front. Over the past 5 years, 73,000 Vietnamese boat people have voluntarily returned to Vietnam from camps around Southeast Asia. All were refused refugee status by the countries in which they had sought residence. And as economic migrants, they were left with no option but to go home. Under an international agreement with the United Nations Refugee Agency, the remaining 40,000 boat people have to be repatriated by the end of this year. But in recent weeks, thousands of those scheduled to return have changed their minds. Our Indochina correspondent, Jonathan Miller, has been to Vietnam to find out why.
They left Vietnam in boats, now they're coming back in planes. At least they were until a few weeks ago, for the flood of returning boat people has suddenly turned into a trickle. In camps across the region, thousands are refusing to go home. They say they fear persecution and arrest in their communist homeland. Imran Riza heads the UNHCR in Ho Chi Minh City. He says those fears are misplaced.
We have absolutely no evidence of any harassment or persecution or discrimination of returnees. There are a lot of independent monitors, if you will, organizations working in Vietnam. If indeed there is some harassment going on, they would say something. If we're not going to say it, they would say it, but they haven't.
Those who work with returnees say that while those in the camps may have had legitimate concerns about persecution a few years ago, the remaining would-be refugees are playing up those fears in a last-ditch attempt to gain asylum somewhere else. None of the returnees I spoke to admitted to harboring any such fears.
When I go back to Vietnam, I feel very happy, but a little nervous because I think that it's very hard to find a job in Vietnam now. I miss Vietnam a lot, that's why I come back.
Như thế em thì khi đăng ký thì em rất là muốn đăng ký về Việt Nam.
Yes, I'm worried, and I'm worried for the family that I have never seen them for a long time.
No, I'm not scared. I myself not scared at home.
After years of incarceration and boredom, these people have abandoned their hopes of resettlement abroad. Those in the camps haven't. They continue to cling to every fresh glimmer of hope. The latest, news of a bill before Congress in Washington which calls for the re-screening of asylum seekers. It's very unlikely to be passed. Most of those who are returning know that. At Todok Reception Center on the outskirts of Ho Chi Minh City, returnees fresh in from Malaysia and the Philippines call excitedly through the fence to relatives who've turned up to welcome them home. Finally, the gates swing open, and after a decade behind barbed wire, they're embraced by tearful loved ones. Up the road, music blasts from the open windows of a bus, waiting to pick up those with longer journeys back to the provinces. Returnees are handed new papers and enough money to see them home. I'm surrounded by returnees throwing their big canvas bags of belongings onto the roof of the bus, waiting to take them back into Ho Chi Minh City. The biggest problem facing most of them will probably be poverty, not persecution. Poverty is why most of them jumped onto boats in the first place. But thanks to a $240 welcome home gift from the United Nations, they'll have a head start. That's what most Vietnamese make in a year.
Jonathan Miller sent us that report. The United States says it's to investigate allegations that the Japanese are restricting American access to their photographic market. This is in response to charges by the Eastman Kodak company that its Japanese rival Fuji and the Japanese government had been involved in anti-competitive practices costing Kodak millions of dollars over the past 20 years. The Japanese government says its film market is completely competitive. Not so, says Charles Smith, a spokesman for Kodak in New York.
We have documented a number of instances where Fuji has engaged in practices to control the leading photographic distributors, wholesalers in that country, in ways that involved cash payments to facilitate control and exclude outsiders, distributor group boycotts, and price fixing and trade association activities. These activities, which we've documented in our 300-page filing to the U.S. government, are in conflict with Japan's own anti-monopoly laws.
Well, now that the American trade representative, Mickey Cantor, has said that there's going to be an investigation into the allegations, what do you want him to do next?
Well, we do not want sanctions. We do not want barriers. We do not want any sort of retaliation. What we want is an opportunity to openly compete in the consumer business in Japan. We would like our government to work with the government of Japan to resolve the issues that are presenting the trade barriers and simply remove them so that we can compete openly.
Charles Smith of Kodak. Now a final look at the headlines. Israeli leaders have given their clearest indication so far of the extent of their proposed redeployment of Israeli troops in the occupied West Bank. Northern Ireland has seen its worst street disturbances since last year, following the early release from prison of a British soldier convicted of killing a Roman Catholic teenager. And on the markets, the Dow Jones closed up 29 at 45.85. In Tokyo, the Nikkei is currently up 63 at 14,548. And the dollar is currently trading at 84.6 Japanese yen. You've been listening to NewsHour. Thank you for joining us.
Fairly shortly, you'll be able to hear the first of a new 9-part series, Pop Science, in which Janice Long brings you the latest from the worlds of science, medicine, and pop music. You're listening to the BBC World Service, broadcasting from our studios here at Bush House in the heart of London.
Are you an English speaker?
At a minimal count, there are some 1,000 million speakers of English in the world.
And English is so globalized that the English cannot call it their own.
English seems to open its arms wide and say to any language that it comes into contact with, I love your vocabulary, gimme, gimme, gimme.
English is a bastard language. That's why it is virile.
How did a bastard language come to be spoken by 1/4 of the world's population? the extraordinary rise and rise of our language in the story of global English.
And you can hear part 1 of that 5-part story, the story of global English, at this time, 02:30 Greenwich Mean Time, tomorrow. BBC World Service. And now, Pop Science, introduced by Janice Long.
Hello, I'm Janice Long, and welcome to the first in our new 1995 series of Pop Science programmes. And we're here again to answer your questions and play lots of good music. And thank you to all of you who sent in questions and requests from all over the world. We've had lots already, but please keep sending them in. Now, this week I've got our old friend Marcus Chown and a new recruit to Pop Science, Roland Pease, in the studio with me to answer your questions. Hi to both of you. Oh, good grief, what's that, a bolt of lightning in the studio? No, we haven't exterminated our experts yet. It's just that the first question from Ma Yin Chung, who lives in Hong Kong, is why does lightning zigzag across the sky? Now, Marcus, I can see you chomping at the bit. You're dying to answer this one.
Well, it's a very good question, and until recently people really didn't have much of a clue. But now there is an idea, and incredibly it's actually got something to do with the stars. Now, lightning is just a massive discharge of electricity from the cloud down to the ground, and as everyone knows, electricity has to go through a conductor, and the air is not a good conductor, not normally. So the lightning has a bit of a problem. Now, it turns out that this is the connection with the stars, that the Earth is bombarded by things called cosmic rays. These are high-energy particles from space. They're microscopic. They come from the sun. They come from objects called pulsars, which are a long, long way away across space. And these bombard the atmosphere, and as they stream through the atmosphere, they break apart the air molecules, and they make a conducting track, normally about 300 meters long. So the air is actually crisscrossed by these conducting paths. So the lightning just goes along one of these paths till it gets to the end, and then it follows the next one, and that's why it zigzags.
Right, but how can you tell if this thing is sort of zigzagging through the sky? How can you tell if it's going to hit you?
Well, often you can actually get some sort of sign. If you're on high ground, on a golf course or on a hill or something, you actually can get a tingling sensation, and the hairs on your arm can actually jump up. And this is an indication that you may be struck by lightning. In some way, the lightning is trying to sort of try out possible paths. If that happens to you, you must immediately lie down on the ground.
And put your wellies on?
Put your wellies on, yes.
All right, Marcus, thank you very much indeed. And Ma Yin would like to hear a track by East 17, and the one he asks for in particular is this.
Hold my body hold my body tight. That body all night. Never tell me no. Hold me. I see you over there. Body would I love to share.
17 and Hold My Body Tight. Well, now we've got a question from Chandragupta Dayanayaka, who comes from Galle in Sri Lanka. And this is definitely one for Roland Pease, right up his street. Chandragupta wants to know if a UFO crashed in New Mexico near the Roswell Air Base in 1947, and where the dead bodies of 4 strange aliens from a distant world found in the remains of the UFO. Roland.
Well, Roswell has to be one of the classics in the UFO canon. Not only did it come down in the night, something shiny, there were also supposedly these bodies. Funny materials were found in the area just after it had happened, and the Air Force came along and took it all away. And the government said, no, nothing happened. So you have the conspiracy. And this is what a UFO spotter really likes. The government is out to get them. They're hiding something secret. And the funny thing is, actually, they were trying to hide something, so you did have all those elements there. They said at the time it's a weather balloon that came down in New Mexico in 1947. And they were sort of lying, because what they've now admitted was that it was actually a spy balloon. And it was part of a thing called the Mogul project that the Americans were engaged in to try and see if the Russians were about to explode atomic bombs. At this point, the Russians hadn't managed to do that. And they found that one way of doing this was to take microphones up into the upper atmosphere, and the sound of any bombs would come around the atmosphere, be trapped at the bottom of the upper part of the atmosphere, and they'd ought to be able to pick these up. And they flew quite a lot of these balloons, and one of them came down over New Mexico. Not surprisingly, it had all sorts of top-secret equipment on it. They didn't want to leave it lying around. So they came and cleared it up, and they told a story at the time, which a lot of UFO spotters didn't believe, and maybe they were right in one sense at least.
But, I mean, it kind of makes sense to me that these UFO spotters would not believe the American authorities, because isn't it possible that they did clear everything up in order to avoid panic? They didn't want people going, oh, my God, what's going on?
I always come back to the point that if you've just travelled all the way across the galaxy and you've come to planet Earth and you find it's actually quite a nice place, I think. Firstly, would you just sort of make a day trip and then say, well, that's very nice, I'm going away, and then someone else comes along and the next week, which is seen by another UFO spotter. So they're not very good at colonising us, and also, if they've managed to steer their spaceship all the way across the galaxy, it's a bit stupid to go and crash at the last moment. So I find even from that point, I find the whole thing very suspicious.
OK, point taken, Roland. Thank you very much indeed. And Chandragupta, here's a track for you. It's MP4 and Search for the Hero. MP4 and Search for the Hero. Well, Marcus is back with me now to answer a question from a listener in Norway. Sven Pringle has written from Oslo and asks, Why is the sky dark at night? Now, that sounds obvious, doesn't it? Because the night side of the Earth is facing away from the sun. But perhaps there's more to his question than that. Is there, Marcus?
Well, it's not obvious at all, actually, and it's been a centuries-long mystery why the sky is actually dark at night. From the time of Isaac Newton, people thought that the universe had existed forever and extended forever. It was infinite. And if that was the case, then stars marched on forever in every direction. So if you looked at the sky, between every two bright stars, you would actually see a fainter star, which was more distant. And between every two faint stars, you'd see an even fainter star. So in other words, all the gaps would be filled up, and the sky should be completely white, not black at all. But the sky is black at night. And what it's telling us is that the universe cannot have existed forever and does not extend infinitely in all directions. And in fact, we know this now because we know that the Earth, the universe was created about 15 billion years ago in the Big Bang. And that means that many of the stars in the universe, their light has not had time to actually reach us. And that's why the sky is not as bright as we would think it to be. So the incredible thing is that the evidence that we live in a universe that was created at finite time in the past, in a Big Bang, was there for cavemen to see and for the Greeks and Romans, and nobody noticed it until recently.
OK, well, you put me in my place. It wasn't obvious after all. Sven, I hope that's answered your question. I know you're into Bjork, and this is for you. It's big time sensuality.